Dying Light is a game filled to the brim with tons of running, jumping, exploring, and head-bashing during a zombie apocalypse. As you climb and smash your way across the city of Haran, though, you'll need to keep yourself supplied, both with weapons and what you need to craft the best items. If by chance you're new to this 2015 classic and want some valuable pointers, then look no further. For here, we'll cover how the game works, the best locations to find lots of basic supplies, how to find some valuable crafting blueprints, and where some great weapons are located. I'm William Strife, and welcome to the Dying Light Beginner's Guide. Once the doors to the tower are unlocked and you're set free upon the city's slums, you're going to want to immediately start searching for metal parts. At the start of the game, scrap metal is the #1 thing you'll need lots of. It's used in many craftables like lockpicks and weapon upgrades, but you also repair your weapons with it. There are multiple ways to find scrap, with the most obvious being rummaging through various trash cans, both big and small. However, an alternative way is to disassemble metal weapons in your inventory to get 1 scrap for each one you deconstruct. And as luck would have it, there are a plethora of trashy starter weapons everywhere, especially in large dumpsters which specifically serve the purpose of breaking your fall when you jump into them. These metal containers filled with detritus frequently have up to 2 low-quality weapons to loot. If you deconstruct a plank, you'll get nails, but if it's a pipe or other metal weapon, you'll get metal parts, making this a great way to round out your collection of basic supplies in the early game. When you're not rummaging through trash cans or breaking down weapons, you need to be searching for supplies throughout the city. This means looking inside baskets, luggage, toolboxes, lockers, closets, cabinets, refrigerators, first aid stations, car trunks, the back of vans, and large chests. It's by searching these various types of containers that you'll find the necessary crafting materials needed to make the various weapons and elemental augments for them. However, there's one particular location within the slums that's filled to the brim with a significant number of these supplies, which we'll call the Looting House. The Looting House is a pharmacy that's locked up tighter than a drum, located west of the tower, just past the train tracks. You can spot it by the ambulance sitting out back. This structure is chock full of various supplies, both basic and slightly more rare, that are useful for all sorts of crafting. If that's not enough, it will also occasionally respawn its loot after enough time has gone by and you're far enough away from it. Or, possibly, if you transition between zones. The catch is how this house can only be accessed from the roof with 2 ways to get on top. The first involves heading east from the tower and across a small footbridge. Following it leads to a clearly designed jumping route full of ramps, balconies, and wooden beams that culminates with you hopping across the top of 3 streetlights to land on the roof. The second is a method that's a little more cheaty and a bit hit and miss. From behind the building, jump on top of the dumpster and climb onto the window bars right above it. After you climb up all the way you can, look directly up at the AC units that are out of reach. Then, rapidly press the jump button while pushing forward. This will either lead to you magnetically leaping farther than you should be able to and grabbing onto the AC units, or you'll briefly stand on top of the window bars and then be able to reach the AC units. Either way, once you're on the roof, hop down through the opening in the bars above the garden, break down the door, and loot all 3 levels top to bottom by checking every chest, toolbox, shelf, desk, table, bag, slightly open drawer, closet, first aid kit, and refrigerator. Then, open the door on the ground floor, and you can easily hop back inside if the house should restock at any time during your game session. Moving on, but also still on the note of supplies, there are also airdrops, which periodically fall into the city and you can run for. Inside each one, you'll find either a pack of flares or medkits and what's called a disaster relief on-site package. The value of dropping everything to grab some flares or medkits is questionable, but the relief packages can be turned into the quartermaster to up your survivor rank, which serves as your main character level. For this reason, running for the airdrops tends to be worth the trouble no matter what it is you happen to be doing at the time. However, there are also 3 separate lost airdrops in the slums which contain the same type of supplies. As for the locations of these drops, the first is just outside of a cave in a pool of water southwest of the tower. All you have to do is dive in and open it up for the spoils. A word of warning though, going into the cave is Well, a bad idea. The second drop is far to the northeast of the tower, on the coast. Its specific location is in the water under a small bridge, halfway between the barge safe zone and the highway connecting to the Infamy Bridge. Cracking this one open is just as easy as the first. Simply dive in and help yourself. Now, the third and final lost airdrop is just west of the second, and a good ways north of the tower. Look for it in the reservoir of a water treatment station. As a word of warning though, the circumstances of this lost airdrop change as the game's story progresses. Initially it's totally unguarded, but eventually a goon will begin to spawn next to it, and shortly thereafter, the drop completely disappears. Anyways, that's it for airdrops and supplies. So now, let's move on to something that relies on having a strong arm. When running back and forth across the map, whether you're searching for specific locations and supply drops or not, you're going to need a quality weapon when dealing with all of the virals in the streets. The first thing to cover for starter weapons is DLC, or downloadable content. In general, Dying Light is a fairly balanced game that regularly throws plenty of decent weapons at you. However, there are a plethora of small DLC packs that usually contain a custom outfit and a handful of weapons. The weapons from these DLCs are geared towards the middle of the game, but you can almost always craft them from the first moment you set foot outside of the tower. This means there's nothing stopping you from grabbing some DLC and crafting mid-game quality arms that far outstrip anything you could naturally find. It's completely unbalanced and removes a lot of challenge from the game, but it does make you feel like a god for a while. Now, while DLC is all good and well, let's touch on a weapon in the base game that's incredibly powerful: the Korek Machete. The Korek Machete is a special developer weapon that deals on average a whopping 500 plus damage, making it a viable arm until you reach the late stages of the game. If that's not enough, it also has 4 modification slots, allowing you to further turn this little Easter egg into a zombie disassembling machine. However, there are drawbacks, starting with the crafting cost to make it, which is 30 metal parts and 10 alcohol. While those components are cheap and readily available, the weapon is also fairly fragile, can't be repaired, can't be disassembled, can't be sold, and can't have elemental blueprints applied to it. All of this means that if you over-rely on the Korek Machete, you'll mostly end up burning through the resources needed to craft it, because it'll snap in no time. That being said, it's totally worth having to use in emergency situations. One extra note, however, is that if you're playing on Nightmare difficulty, the weapon is disabled, and you cannot craft it. Now, with all of that said, the blueprints to make this razor knife are located on the top of a quarantined apartment building, far north and a little west of the tower. If you've been exploring, there's a chance it'll be marked with a biohazard symbol, as it's the location of the underground parking dungeon. Now, to get on top of this building, hop inside of the fenced-in front yard and climb on top of an AC unit just to the right of the small tunnel. Next, jump to the street lamp behind you on the right. If you're having trouble doing so, just be careful where you look and spam the jump button in midair. From there, leap onto the balconies and jump back and forth between them to reach the roof, using the barrier at the top to clear the last edge. What you're looking for is a series of crates in the center of the roof, hiding a small contained space. It's here you'll find a blue-colored toolbox you have to kick nearly 100 times to open. Inside, you'll find the blueprints for the Korek Machete. One final note though. To get off of the roof, head to the southernmost corner to find a dumpster down below that will break your fall. Now, while melee weapons are the bread and butter of Dying Light, what about a gun? As it so happens, there's a basic pistol you can grab the moment you first set foot outside of the tower. It's in a small shack just southeast and very near the tower on the shore of an inlet. Inside is a man who chose to end things in a grisly way instead of living through the zombie apocalypse. Grabbing the firearm for yourself is easy enough, as it's at his feet, but with a lack of ammo available in the early game, this weapon is best used sparingly. Alternatively though, you can use it to complete an early game side quest where a man wants you to find him a gun long before they're available. Regardless of what you choose to do though, you now know where to find yourself a basic pea shooter. Now, as thin as the list of powerful and durable weapons are in the early game of Dying Light, the more generic ones you'll pick up are also plenty valuable, especially if you apply an elemental effect to them. Elemental augmentations for your weapons come from blueprints, which are acquired in a variety of ways. They're sold by vendors, given as reward for certain quests, and many are just lying out in the open waiting to be picked up. There are plenty of these things to find across the city, but for the intent of this guide, we'll only look at where to find some of the best double effect blueprints you can grab the minute you're allowed to run and jump across the slums. The first set of blueprints we'll cover is the glowing stick. You can apply these plans to a selection of blunt weapons, including bats, pipes, crowbars, and police batons for both a small burn and small electric effect. This is actually a fairly weak blueprint, but is reasonably good as low-hanging fruit. The plans are located northwest of the tower inside of a wrecked bus. More specifically, the bus is found on a small east-west overpass above the rail yard. And that's it. Again, not the best blueprints, but super easy to find. Now, if blunt weapons aren't your flavor, then the next blueprint, called Filthy Blade, may fit your taste. You can apply it to any long or short knife for the medium bleed and small toxic effects. The plans are located inside of a small building at the natural gas control station on the far west side of the map, not far from Rise's compound. The door to get inside typically has a hard lock though, so you'll likely need to distract the biters in the area before you can pop the door open. Once you do though, you'll find the Filthy Blade crafting recipe just sitting on a shelf, along with plenty of other loot. Now, the last double effect blueprint we'll cover is the Puke'N'Nuke. You can apply this augment to a long list of weapons for the medium toxic and small burning effects. It's located inside of a basic chest on a hillside in the northeast corner of the map. To find the specific spot, head for the barge safe zone, and from there, swim for a small rowboat just north of it among the rocks. From the boat, keep going directly north up a small grassy knoll till you reach a moderately tall rock wall, and climb the ledges on your left. At the top, head east and jump over to another grassy hillside. Continue up that hillside eastward, and it turns into an obvious path, at the top of which you'll find a barrel fire and a trunk, with the Puke'N'Nuke blueprints inside. On a side note, you can also find some of the toxic lichen needed for crafting it on the cliffs just below where the chest is. Dying Light is a big game that rewards exploration in many ways, and there's still much more to discover in the city of Haran. The list of beginner's advice here was far from exhaustive, but hopefully the small smattering of collectibles and tips will help you survive in the quarantine just that much better and get started that much easier. Thanks for watching and listening. I'm William Strife, and this guide was made possible by support from viewers at strife.solutions. Please consider contributing so I can continue making them. You can also find me on Twitch, where you can find my stream schedule. Links in the description. Good night, and good luck.